I think the most interesting thing about an episode like this of Goblin Slayer Season 2 is that even when Goblin Slayer is arguably at its weakest, which is pretty much what an episode like this was, that's not me saying I didn't enjoy watching it, I absolutely had a fun time, but I think in general, this is the type of episode that reminds you that even when Goblin Slayer may not be at its absolute best, it still is a very enjoyable watch, and I think in a lot of ways what Season 2 is doing is setting the stage for the future of this show and where a potential season 3 is really going to take off. And I already can see certain comments. I know how YouTube is. You're making excuses. This mediocre season for you and blah, blah, blah. It's like, no. I've pretty much consistently said that I enjoy the production style of season 1. And in general, I enjoy season 1 as a whole, at least for the first 8 episodes of season 1, more than the first 8 episodes of season 2. However, I think Season 2 does have a leg up with characterization, especially for a character like Goblin Slayer, because a lot of the heavy lifting was done in Season 1, and we're reaping the benefits in Season 2. But the idea of having this now connection to an elven village, we have a lot more connection with party members, and the fact that the Priestess, as an example, I mean, she's both emotionally a lot more mature with where she was at in Season 1, but we also see the negativity and the fears of being a priestess and potentially using your prayers to Earth Mother and the type of death that you might cause or the pain you might cause. Are you going against your teachings? Are you straying from the path? And I think knowing that there is this fear that Goblin Slayer is going to have to do something more than just slay goblins, there is some sort of threat coming, and we get hints in this episode again. We had hints last week. It feels like a season 3, that's where the setup that we're getting now is really going to take off. And in some ways, it's a shame this isn't a 2-core season because I really think core 2 is where things are going to go crazy. But even at what I would say Goblin Slayer is at right now, which is its weakest for an episode like this, I still had a blast watching, and I really enjoyed this episode. But full live reaction over on my Patreon. If you would like to see that, head on over there and consider supporting. So this was a episode with a little bit of action. There was, I mean, technically a lot of action in the grand picture, but it wasn't like the type of action that the plans were the most complex thing. It was a good plan overall, and there was some stabbing, there was some slicing, there was some dicing. But most importantly, it was just about clearing this area, and they cleared it in a pretty clever way, and I kind of like Goblin Slayer's mindset of basically like, okay, yeah, I can't do much about the water, but honestly, who cares? I mean, at the end of the day, I cleared out the goblins, the building, the structure is standing, send a cleanup crew. The elves have people, send the cleanup crew to deal with this, and I kind of like that reaction, because our elf is always kind of like, you know, make sure you don't be too destructive, this, that, and the third. And this time he wasn't having none of it. He's like, listen, I did my job. I'm going to the buffet now. And I think a simple moment like going to a wedding, right? Is it the most important thing in the grand picture of a storyline? Well, not really, but it does a lot for the characters. And I think just seeing them open up and have that kind of slice of life is important. But I think my favorite part of an episode like this was honestly the Priestess and just her mannerisms. And honestly, I think the thing she didn't say, but her face gave such a powerful impression. So at one point when they're on the roof, right, there's a shaman and, I don't know, like 30 goblins, something like that. And what ends up happening is the shaman gets shot in like one of his arms, and by the archer, of course, our elf. And what ends up happening is that new blessing that we got a couple episodes back. So the shaman like releases this like misty fog, and I wasn't sure if it was poison, indoctrination, I didn't know what, but things were looking bad. So I'm like, oh, we got that new blessing, right? We're going to use the blessing, we'll clear it all up, and then Goblin Slayer will do his goblin slaying things, and heads will be flying. Instead, the hand came down, touched the shaman, I guess touched him in all the wrong places, because then, like, it kind of looked like the blood that was, like, seeping from his wound almost was like ice, and it looked like it poisoned him from the inside. And it was really interesting because, you know, put yourself in the position of someone who worships the Lord above, the Earth Mother, or whoever it is she worships, right? And the fact that your prayer, your blessing, it looks like it killed something. It's just like, it's very interesting to see what that does to her mind. And just over the course of the episode past that point, she feels like she dirtied or soiled her beliefs. It's just like the idea that someone who is so much braver, so much more confident about everything that's going on with goblin slaying. I mean, she literally soiled herself on the floor at the beginning of season 1 because of what these goblins did. Now, half the time, she's the one leading the charge. She literally said, let's go slay some goblins before the man, the myth, the legend, Goblin Slayer did. Everyone was collectively dumbfounded, like, wait, did this girl really just say that she's gonna go? It's like, isn't that your line? And he had to be like, yes, let's slay them goblins. Moments like those are why I say, even when Goblin Slayer may be at its weakest for me, where, like, you know, it's perfectly fine. People think this is the best episode of the season, go ahead. For me, it's like, it was fun watching them go through the cave, but nothing truly explosive or exciting happened to the point where I'm like, that really impressed me, except what happened with the Priestess. That is something that really, really did impress me. And I like the fact that because of this party and everything we experienced in season 1 and what we've now experienced over the course of season 2, we really are setting the stage for interesting characterization moments. Whether that's Goblin Slayer reminiscing about his dreams of wanting to be a hero, ghost saving the day, and the background information we know about there's something bigger and bigger brewing and Hugh probably is going to be the one to help save it. Or moments like with the Priestess and her faith and just the fact of like what it's clearly doing to her at times. I love the fact that characterization is always the most important thing in a story like Goblin Slayer. And it was in season 1, it took longer for certain eggs to crack and shells to break because obviously look at where we started out with our boy who never took his helmet off, let alone open up. But now things are really speeding by, not because they're rushing the pacing, but more so it feels like because once you rip that band-aid off, like all the other band-aids start ripping off in kind of like a rapid succession. And season 1 ended with the guild like collectively hyping up Goblin Slayer, so it makes sense that now we're kind of reaping those benefits, so to speak. There was some fun action. It wasn't the craziest thing I've seen in this season or even last season of Goblin Slayer, but it was nice just, you know, kind of like them going on a vacation to go to a wedding, get thrown into what would normally be their day-to-day life in general, and then just going back to the wedding at the end of the day. And I really appreciated the simpleness, like even the moment like when she's asked to do a blessing from the Earth Mother. She's at the moment visibly worried, like, I don't think Earth Mother's gonna listen to me because of what happened on the rooftop. And as soon as like it looks like it happened, it just felt like she let out a sigh of relief, like, no, she is still okay. And just, it was a beautiful wedding. It was a beautiful little moment. I still think this is just a me issue. I'm not sure if I'm the only one who feels it. I think half the time when I look at elven characters, their ears are just a little too much for me. Like half the time I'm like, they're just gonna fly away, flap away Dumbo style. And then at other points I'm like, it works just fine. Like I think our elf character, she looks always fine. Maybe it's the hairstyle and the way it covers ears or something. But like some of those ears, I just felt like, it was like Pinocchio's nose. It just kept getting larger and larger and it just was a little much for me. But that's just my personal feelings. But I love to know what everyone thought because I think there's probably gonna be a lot of people who will maybe agree with me that this is one of the weaker episodes, but I'm interested if there's gonna be just as many who will say I still enjoyed it, because that's kind of my feeling. This is an episode that's not gonna really remain on my mind when I think of Goblin Slayer Season 2. Maybe the moment with the Priestess, but in general, I still really had fun with it, and I think this is a season that's setting the stage for a epic Season 3, if we're lucky enough to see it, which I think we will. So let me know what you're feeling down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're around here, of course ring that bell so you can get notified when I upload more reviews channel. Like I mentioned, we have full live reaction over on my Patreon if you're interested. And hey, right there, you also get a video shout out. So today we have Sharon, Derek Nickel, Trap Senpai, Bryce DeZangles, Taylor, Sphinx, and F Google. So I appreciate the support, everyone. Please take care and have a good one.